I can't believe I'm about to tell you this, but I exposed my entire family at Thanksgiving, and you genuinely won't believe the chaos that erupted. Was I wrong for what I did? Tell me honestly if you would have done the same thing. Because, looking back, part of me feels a profound sense of relief, and another part is still reeling from the fallout. It was a Thanksgiving that will forever be etched in my memory, not for the turkey or the pumpkin pie, but for the raw, unadulterated truth that finally came spilling out. Let me take you back to where it all began, to a life that, from the outside, probably looked picture perfect. I'm the eldest of three siblings. My younger sister, Clara, is a year younger than me, and my brother, Daniel, is 5 years my junior. Growing up, our family dynamic was complicated. My parents, Mark and Susan, always presented a united front, but beneath the surface, there was a quiet tension, a constant undercurrent of unspoken expectations and subtle manipulations. My mom, in particular, was a master of passive aggression and emotional blackmail. She was the kind of person who would compliment you with a backhanded sting, always ensuring you knew where you stood in her unspoken hierarchy. My dad, bless his heart, was often caught in the middle, trying to play peacemaker, but usually just enabling my mom's behavior by his silence. Clara, my sister, was always the golden child. She was naturally beautiful, effortlessly charming, and everything she touched seemed to turn to gold in my parents' eyes. She excelled in school, had a wide circle of friends, and even her early career trajectory was meteoric. I, on the other hand, was always the responsible one, the studious one, the one who worked twice as hard for half the recognition. I poured myself into my studies, pursued a demanding career in finance, and thought that by achieving conventional success, I would finally earn their approval. Spoiler alert, I didn't. Daniel, my younger brother, was a bit of an enigma. He was quiet, artistic, and often seemed to float above the family drama, observing rather than participating. He was the only one who seemed to offer me genuine empathy sometimes, a quiet nod of understanding when I was feeling particularly downtrodden by my parents' favoritism towards Clara. The favoritism wasn't just a feeling, it was a tangible, undeniable reality that manifested in countless ways. Clara got the new car for her 16th birthday, while I had to drive the beat-up family hand, me down. Clara's college tuition was paid in full, no questions asked, while I had to take out significant student loans, with my parents vaguely promising to help out later. A promise that, of course, never materialized. Every achievement I made, no matter how significant, was met with a lukewarm response, often immediately followed by a story about Clara's latest triumph. It felt like I was constantly living in her shadow, perpetually striving for a love and acceptance that was freely given to her. It built up year after year, a slow, festering wound that I tried to ignore, tried to rationalize, tried to pretend didn't exist. I told myself that every family had its quirks, that parents had different ways of showing love, that I was just being overly sensitive. But deep down, I knew it wasn't normal, and it certainly wasn't fair. The root of my decision, the catalyst for the Thanksgiving bombshell, wasn't just the cumulative effect of years of unequal treatment, but a specific event that finally pushed me over the edge. About 6 months before that fateful Thanksgiving, my grandmother, my dad's mother, passed away. She was a wonderful woman, the only person in my family who truly saw me, truly celebrated my successes without comparing them to anyone else's. She had always been my rock, my confidante, and her passing left a huge void. During her final years, she had been quite ill, and I had been her primary caregiver. I spent countless weekends at her house, managing her appointments, cooking her meals, and simply being there for her. My parents and Clara, while sending flowers and making polite calls, were largely absent from the day-to-day caregiving. Daniel would visit sometimes, quietly drawing pictures for her, which she adored. Grandma, knowing her time was limited, had told me on several occasions that she had made arrangements to leave me a significant portion of her estate, specifically a valuable antique jewelry collection that had been passed down for generations, and a sizable sum of money to help me pay off my student loans and put a down payment on a house. She wanted to ensure I was taken care of, knowing how my parents had treated me financially. She had even shown me the legal documents outlining her wishes, explicitly stating that these items were for me, and me alone. After her funeral, when the will was read, I braced myself. I knew what was coming, or so I thought. The lawyer, a kind older gentleman named Mr. Henderson, started reading. He detailed the various bequests, a small sum to my parents, a portion to Clara, and then he got to my name. My heart pounded. He read that I was to receive a small sum, significantly less than what Grandma had promised, and no mention of the antique jewelry collection. I was floored. I looked at my parents, who exchanged a quick, almost imperceptible glance. Clara sat there with a serene, almost triumphant smile on her face. I felt a cold dread wash over me. After the reading, I pulled Mr. Henderson aside. "Excuse me," I said, my voice trembling. "I think there might be a mistake. My grandmother told me she was leaving me the antique jewelry and a much larger sum of money. She even showed me the documents." Mr. Henderson looked genuinely confused. He pulled out the official, signed will. "I assure you, young lady, this is the most recent and only legally binding will we have. It was signed just a month before her passing." My stomach dropped. I knew, with a terrifying certainty, that something was terribly, terribly wrong. Grandma had been too ill, too frail, to have changed her will so drastically in her final month. And she would never have gone back on her word to me, especially not after all the care I had given her. Over the next few months, I became obsessed. I started digging, quietly and discreetly. I spoke to nurses who had cared for Grandma, to her neighbors, to her closest friends. I pieced together a timeline. It became horrifyingly clear. My mother, with Clara's full knowledge and likely her cooperation, had manipulated my ailing grandmother. While I was at work, they had been visiting Grandma, slowly isolating her, filling her head with lies about me. They painted me as uncaring, as only being interested in her money, as neglecting her. They convinced her, in her weakened and confused state, to change her will. They likely used undue influence, perhaps even forged her signature or had her sign something she didn't understand. The jewelry collection, which was meant for me, ended up with Clara. The significant sum of money meant to alleviate my financial burdens had been diverted, a good portion of it ending up in a joint account my parents had with Clara, disguised as a family fund. I found proof: receipts, bank statements, recorded conversations from a trusted caregiver who had grown suspicious and had secretly documented some of their manipulative tactics. The betrayal was like a physical blow. It wasn't just about the money or the jewelry. It was about the deliberate, malicious undermining of my relationship with my grandmother, the twisting of her last wishes, and the sheer audacity of my own family to do such a thing. I confronted them, gently at first, presenting some of my evidence, hoping they would confess, hoping they would show some remorse. My mom became defensive, my dad retreated, and Clara feigned ignorance, accusing me of being greedy and disrespectful to Grandma's memory. Their denials only solidified my resolve. I decided then and there that I wouldn't let them get away with it. This Thanksgiving, I would expose them. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. I had all this evidence, all this proof of their deceit, and the perfect opportunity was approaching Thanksgiving dinner. The whole family would be there, aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents on my dad's side, and of course, my parents, Clara, and Daniel. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let it go, kept the peace for the sake of family harmony, or would you have brought it all out into the open, consequences be damned? I wrestled with it for weeks. The thought of creating a scene, of shattering the carefully constructed facade of our perfect family, filled me with dread. But the alternative, living with their betrayal and allowing them to get away with it, felt even worse. It felt like a betrayal of Grandma's memory, a betrayal of myself. My mind was made up. Thanksgiving Day arrived, cloaked in a deceptive sense of normalcy. The house smelled of roasting turkey and cranberry sauce. Relatives milled about, exchanging pleasantries, laughing, and sharing stories. My mom, ever the gracious host, was flitting around, making sure everything was just so. Clara was radiant, showing off her new, antique brooch, the one that was rightfully mine, to admiring aunts. My dad was carving the turkey, oblivious or perhaps willfully ignorant to the storm brewing. I sat at the dining table, picking at my mashed potatoes, my heart pounding in my chest. Daniel, sensing my tension, gave me a subtle, concerned look from across the table. He knew something was up, though he didn't know the extent of it. After the main meal, as everyone was settling in with coffee and dessert, the usual round of what we're thankful for began. It was a tradition that always felt performative to me, but this year it felt particularly hollow. One by one, people shared their gratitude for health, for family, for good fortune. Then it was my mom's turn. She launched into a saccharine speech about how thankful she was for her beautiful, loving family, for her wonderful children, and how blessed she felt. She even mentioned how much she missed Grandma, her voice thick with what I knew was feigned emotion. My blood ran cold. This was it. My turn came. I took a deep breath, clutching the small, inconspicuous USB drive in my pocket. I'm thankful, I began, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands, for truth, and today I'm going to share some truth with all of you. A hush fell over the table. All eyes were on me. My parents exchanged confused, then worried, glances. Clara's smile faltered. Many of you know that Grandma passed away recently. I continued, projecting my voice so everyone could hear. And many of you know she was a kind, generous woman. She loved us all, but she had a special bond with me. She also made specific wishes for her estate, wishes that she shared with me personally. I paused, letting the words hang in the air. Unfortunately, those wishes were not honored. In fact, they were deliberately and maliciously subverted by some members of this family. The atmosphere in the room shifted from confusion to stunned silence, then to a ripple of murmurs. My mom's face went white. "What are you talking about, dear?" she said, trying to sound innocent, but her voice was tight with panic. "I'm talking about Grandma's will," I stated, pulling out the USB drive. "I'm talking about how, in her final, most vulnerable weeks, she was manipulated and lied to, all to change her will in favor of Clara and yourselves, Mom and Dad. I'm talking about the antique jewelry collection that was meant for me, and the significant sum of money that was redirected into a family fund that Clara and my parents conveniently control. I plugged the USB into the laptop I had strategically placed on a side table, connected to the large TV screen in the living room. The evidence flashed on the screen, scanned copies of my grandmother's original will, dated months before her death, clearly outlining her intentions for me. Then, side by side, the new will with a shaky, almost unrecognizable signature. There were screenshots of text messages between my mom and Clara discussing how to handle Grandma. There were bank statements showing the suspicious transfers and even a recording, discreetly made by the concerned caregiver, of my mom and Clara badmouthing me to Grandma, planting seeds of doubt. In her fragile mind, the room erupted, gasps, shocked whispers, furious exclamations. My mom stood up, her face a mask of fury and humiliation. "This is outrageous, lies, all of it," she shrieked, pointing at me. "You're making this up because you're jealous." My dad, for once, didn't retreat. He looked utterly devastated, his face pale as he stared at the screen, at the undeniable evidence. Clara, meanwhile, had gone completely silent, her face flushed crimson, her eyes darting nervously. Then the true chaos began. My aunt, my dad's sister, who had always been close to Grandma, started to cry. "Susan, Mark, how could you?" she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. My mom tried to snatch the laptop, but I moved it out of her reach. "The truth is right here," I yelled over the din. "This isn't about jealousy, it's about justice. It's about Grandma's last wishes being respected." Daniel, who had been quietly watching, suddenly spoke up, his voice surprisingly firm. I knew something was off, he said, looking directly at our parents. "Grandma loved my name. She always talked about giving her the jewelry. This was the final nail in the coffin." My parents, completely exposed, began to argue with each other, blame shifting, throwing accusations. Clara tried to flee the room, but my dad, who seemed to have finally snapped out of his silent enabler role, grabbed her arm. "Where do you think you're going, Clara? Explain this." The rest of the evening was a blur of accusations, tears, shouting, and utterly shattered family bonds. Some relatives were on my side, appalled by the deception. Others, particularly my mom's side of the family, tried to defend her, claiming I was airing dirty laundry and ruining the holiday. But the evidence was too compelling. By the end of the night, the house was mostly empty. Only my parents, Clara, Daniel, and I remained amidst the wreckage of a Thanksgiving dinner that would forever live in infamy. My dad, after hours of furious argument, finally turned to me, his eyes filled with a pain I had never seen before. I didn't know," he stammered, though his voice lacked conviction. "I had no idea it was this bad." I just looked at him, unable to offer comfort. My mom and Clara were still trying to deny everything, but their words were hollow. The damage was done. In the days and weeks that followed, the fallout was immense. My parents' marriage, already fragile, entered a deep freeze. There were talks of separation, of lawyers. Clara was ostracized by many family members, particularly my dad's side, and the antique jewelry was eventually returned to me, albeit grudgingly. I also received a significant portion of the money that had been diverted, after a very tense and difficult negotiation involving lawyers. My relationship with my parents is irrevocably broken. I still speak to Daniel, who has been incredibly supportive, and we've grown closer through this ordeal. He's the only one I truly feel I have left in my immediate family. As for Thanksgiving, we all agreed it's probably best to celebrate separately from now on. Looking back, I don't regret it. The peace of mind, the sense of finally standing up for myself and for Grandma, was worth the temporary explosion. It was painful, yes, but it was also liberating. It stripped away the illusion, the pretense of a loving, functional family, and revealed the uncomfortable truth. And sometimes the truth, no matter how ugly, is exactly what you need. So, was I wrong for what I did? I leave that for you to decide. But for me, it was the only way to truly honor my grandmother and reclaim my own sense of worth. Like this video if you were on my side in this whole mess. Subscribe for more stories like this, and please, share your final thoughts on this whole ordeal in the comments section below. I'll see you all in the next story.